Um, Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the initial episode, I guess, of Lighten Up is what I'm calling it. It's a project for people that inspire me, awesome people that I meet, people that I think have a lot to share with the community. And I just want to have a conversation. It's really, there's some questions, but if we get to them, great. If not, it's really just a conversation about finding style, about approaches to lighting, approaches to posing, and just introducing everybody to different artists. So without further ado, I want to introduce a friend of mine, Charles Maring. Welcome, sir.
Oh, thanks, TJ. Good to be here.
Yeah, so I'm glad you're on the initial episode. I couldn't think of anyone better. Someone that likes the tech side, that could deal with the troubleshooting and kind of working out the bugs. I figured you were the primary victim, which is
cool.
Good.
I like being first.
Welcome, welcome. So you've been traveling a little bit. Tell everybody kind of what you do and what your life has been like recently.
Yeah, so I am a photographer, really. I mean, that's kind of how I define myself, I guess. That's how I make my living, I should say. So I photograph people for the most part. Sometimes that's portraits in our studio. Sometimes it's weddings, events. I do a lot of street photography and other types of photography too. But I generally like to include people in my work because when you add a person to anything, it just deepens what it's all about. And I think coming from a humanity perspective, it just allows people to have thoughts about their own life and so on and so forth when they see a work of art that's people related. So I kind of focus on people more than anything.
Excellent. So I have to ask, as we look around in your studio, tell me a little bit about the artwork that's on the wall, on your shirt, because I feel like that's also a big part of what you do.
It is. So I make my living as a photographer, but I'm really multi-passionate about everything I do. I am a expressionist painter. I paint these gigantic, strange things. Again, I generally include faces or people or some sort of characters for the same reason, just to add depth to things. And then what I do is I photograph the painting. So I use all that photography background and I will have them printed on t-shirts. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yep, t-shirts and skirts and scarves and dresses for the ladies. And we have a little website that we run, and it's really geared.
What's the website? What's the website?
ShopCharlie.com.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
And so now, is the painting behind you, is that a face that I see?
That came together last night. It is now. So late last night, my wife and I were chilling in the studio here, and I just kept painting and whistling. I'm like a savant whistler, right? So I whistled all night and came up with this strange thing. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Covered up or not, who knows?
I love it. No, I think it looks cool. Very cool. So as we talk about lighting, so tell me now, the reason that I know you is you are one of the Panasonic ambassadors, used to be called the Luminaries, but I believe you're affiliated with some other brands as well, correct? So tell me about kind of that side. Tell me about your teaching and what you've been up to there.
Yeah, so I've been passionate about lighting in my work since, pretty much the very beginning. I've always really put a lot of energy and thought into the lighting of our work. And so I'm also affiliated with ProPhoto, meaning anytime I have a project that's a speaking engagement, sometimes they'll help me, sponsor a speaking engagement or something like that. Other times I'll speak in their booth. We've done videos behind the scenes with them as well, where they kind of followed us through a journey and did some lighting instruction. So I'm a really big fan of their lighting just because it's what I organically use. Same thing with Lumix. I wouldn't talk about anything that I'm not passionate about or don't believe in. And so I've been using Lumix for so many years. I've been using ProPhoto for so many years. It's just a natural fit. And so I love to share and educate on everything that I learn about it as I use it in the field. So
that's awesome. So tell me, what does that lighting rig look like? So I know that's very different for all different types of scenarios, but let's start with a wedding. What does your wedding rig look like?
When it comes to lighting, I generally take two ProPhoto heads to weddings. So, it's a pretty good size studio strobe, but it's all battery powered, and it will literally on one battery last the entire day because I don't run it at full power. I'm generally running half power or less. And that helps me out whether I'm indoors or outdoors for doing all the portraits and making everything look elegant and just very best in class when it comes to the portrait and pose work that we do. But also, once we get to the reception, I rarely use on-camera flash anymore. What I'll do is I've come up with ways to light our rooms in sophisticated ways that allow the lighting to look, I always say it looks very Gatsby, because I never even want to touch my photographs, because when you light a room really well and therefore light all the subjects on the dance floor and at the tables very well, just the color right out of the camera is so spot on and beautiful that, I don't want to cover up things with like Instagram filters or anything. So my photography tends to be very clean and natural, which actually is, I think, the hardest thing to pull together when you're in an environment with DJ lighting and all these other things going on. So it's like finding that balance between things. So 2 Profoto strobes generally at my weddings.
Nice. So you said you don't do a lot of on camera. So are you looking at an A1? Is that going to add to the kit?
I would love to have an A1. I haven't gone that way yet, but yeah, I'm considering one for sure, because they're just so small and lightweight, and I think they could be an incredible benefit to me. Yeah.
Awesome. So a question that I have for you, do you suffer from gear acquisition syndrome? So for me, like, I just buy a lot of toys, a lot of gear. Is that something that you also suffer from?
I do. I really got to go to the doctor weekly for this, because
I feel like we could probably start a support.
All my money, man. I don't make any money. I just spend it on gear.
Tell my wife I'm reinvesting into my business. So
Yeah,
where can people, we didn't even tell anybody yet, but where can people find your work?
There's a couple different places. The best place probably to figure out me is to go to my personal website, charlesmaring.com, CharlesMaring.com, because that's going to link to all the other things that I do. It'll link to my paintings. It'll link to the fashion scenario we did. It'll link to my photography portfolio website as well, and kind of give you a full picture of everything.
Excellent.
And then beyond that, my wife and I are YouTubers. We are YouTubing 5 days a week. 3 days a week, we go live with a vlog, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Just gives everybody kind of behind the scenes of what we do and our kind of some inspirations and whatnot. And then Tuesday and Thursday, we're going live with lighting demonstrations. I just did a 4-light setup yesterday that's going live next week. And then also like Photoshop or Final Cut Pro tutorials, things like that. So any kind of technology-driven thing.
That is awesome. Definitely, we will put links in the description below for all the places to find. And it's been truly an inspiration to see, like, when we first started, both of us, like YouTube, you started before I did, but when we were talking about YouTube, we talked about, we were here both, videos here and there, and you've gone all in. I just saw your GH5S video you posted, the vlog stuff. You are going all in, and it's all quality work, and I applaud you for that. And it's kind of the inspiration behind this. What type of content can I build to make the community a better place, and just introduce, you as an artist to other people. And I just think it's really, so I do want to applaud you. You're doing an awesome job with that.
And I love this idea. I always wanted to do something like what you're doing, tell stories of other artists, because, we're all the storytellers of the world. But I've always thought, I look at some of my friends, I'm like, I would love to do a story on that person, because there's just so many interesting creators out there. So thank you for that. But I kind of dig this idea. It's pretty cool.
You're doing a great job. So to lighting, let's start at the beginning. You walk up. We know that you have Profoto, usually two of the monoblocks or monolights. What is your go-to approach to lighting a subject? So, from setting shutter, aperture, looking around, take me through from, concept all the way to, the end. What does that process look like? I feel like there's photographers out there that they think about lighting and their mind just shuts down because there's just all these things that they have to think about. So if you were to kind of systemize or give us the steps, what does your approach look like?
It's great that you said that, because I agree. When you have so many options, it's hard to make decisions, right? So I typically go with the simplest idea possible because you don't have to overlight things to create beautiful portraits. In fact, the more simplistic you keep things, sometimes the better. So a lot of what I do, believe it or not, is single light setups, keeping my light close to my subject. I know that because then I'm controlling the light on the subject so as close as I possibly can in a portrait scenario. And generally, I'll go in with either just the built-in reflector that's in the Profoto mono head, because that's actually, a lot of people don't realize, a really high quality reflector that throws light really wide. So you can use that in a lot of scenarios, just straightforward. But if I want to get more of that fashionable portrait quality of wraparound lighting, I'll generally add a beauty dish to that. And so that's like 80% of what I end up doing at weddings, is keeping it really simple until I get to the reception, and then things shift to something a little more complicated. But sure. Yeah, so just really simplistic.
So when you say the beauty dish, am I correct to assume it's the OCF, the one that packs flat, kind of umbrella-like from Profoto, or?
I have that one and I like it, but I'm actually pretty addicted to the soft white beauty dish, the hard reflector.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've actually been looking
at that. I throw that in the trunk and I take it with me. It's a pain, but
you like it. And is that the one piece of lighting like modifier that you couldn't live without, or
that's the one I couldn't live without, no question. Yeah, I turn to it for so many things. Are you there?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, we had a break up there. Yeah, that's my light modifier I couldn't live without.
And how do you use that? Do you do the grids? Do you put the soft like scrim on the front? How do you use that?
No, I've never used a scrim. I just use it straight up, because beauty dishes, what's nice about them is they do throw light everywhere. So they almost give like a softbox quality of things, the way they throw light. But I'll use the 25-degree honeycomb grid a lot of times when I want to keep light off my background and just keep it focused on the subject. So and that's a lot of the time, because a lot of the times I'm not looking to light the background, but just have really high quality light on the face.
We broke up a little bit there.
We did.
But can you just finish out? So the honeycomb, the 25-degree, you said to keep it off the background. That was the last thing I heard.
Yeah, well, that's what honeycomb grids do. They keep the light from hitting the background, keep it focused on your subject. So depending on what your background is, that's a great way to control it and keep the light very focused on what you want.
Excellent, excellent. So what is one piece, and I think I know this answer already, but what is one piece of lighting gear that you could not live without?
It's just straight up B1. Yeah, the Profoto B1 is it's the best strobe I've ever owned in 25 years of shooting. And I'm actually just blown away that I don't think I'm completely wireless, you know, no cords whatsoever from the camera, or not plugged into a wall. So it's just so simple, simplifies everything.
Absolutely. So if you were starting over again, what would you tell yourself when it comes to lighting? What is one thing that you would tell yourself, you know, as you're just starting out?
I think I would probably tell myself that lighting is the key to differentiating yourself from other photographers in the industry. And understanding lighting is kind of the key to consistency in your work. And then to complement that, it's really the key to high-paying assignments, especially these days. There's so many photographers out there, so many shooting natural light, so many shooting on-camera flash, that I think if you're going to step into that pro role and want to be paid, you know, what you're worth and what you should be valued at, you have to be doing something different than what everyone else is doing, different than what Uncle Harry can do or will do. And so that's how we differentiate ourselves at weddings. We know that nobody else gets the same shots that we're getting at the wedding because nobody else is lighting it. Nobody else is taking the time. Does it take more energy? Absolutely. But it's the key to getting paid what you're worth, I think.
That's excellent. And what are some work that you admire? So, you know, where you're at in your career, you know, where do you draw that inspiration? And it might not even be a photographer. It might be a movie. It might be, you know, a certain magazine. Where do you feel like you draw your inspiration from?
You know, I certainly watch movies differently now that I've been shooting so much video. You know, I pay attention to what they did and, you know, lighting wise, and I definitely draw more from that side of things, I think, to grow as an artist. But if I look backwards, you know, I'm a big fan of Richard Avedon's work. it's just that his work was so simple. You know, it's not so much about the backdrop and the busyness. It's tell a story with a photograph and let the lighting speak volumes. And so I don't really study other artists, but anytime I happen to stumble into a gallery and his work is present, I will spend some time with it, you know? So
Absolutely.
yeah, big fan of his work.
I can definitely speak to the looking at videos differently and seeing how things are, you know, you're watching to see how things were lit. I was on the way to WPPI this year, and the model that was actually traveling with us was watching a movie, and I just watched, you know, just to see without the sound. And it's a great exercise just to see if you can figure out how things are lit and what are they trying to convey with that lighting. And that is definitely an exercise I think a lot of people could go through, because it forces you to think. You know, the audio narration is taken out and you just look at the light, and it's really interesting to see what comes up.
Yeah, for sure. The study of film is so interesting because you're not just lighting for person, you're lighting for scene. And you're lighting with color to build mood in that scene. And so it's just a quite different from what we typically think in our world of portrait photography. And I have to also remind myself, because I photograph people, that it's hard to get clients to take risk and do something outside the norm. They want to look pretty in their picture. So I always love to try and do something in each session that's kind of for myself, as well as something where they look pretty and natural. Because I know that that's probably what they're going to buy. That's what they're going to spend their money on. But I think in order to grow personally, when you're photographing people, you also have to try and do something that's just a little bit outside the norm of what someone's comfortable with. Because sometimes they'll surprise you, and they will fall in love with what you can see in them. And they say people grow to be more like their portraits. So it's kind of cool when you can see something in someone that they can't see in themselves. Yep. And almost introduce them to themselves. Does that make sense?
It does. It very much. Yes, I see it a lot, and especially, you know, with weddings. It's, you know, they hair and makeup. They've spent the time. They've spent the money, and I don't want to say that they look the best that they ever will, but it's definitely a top 10. You know, it's the happiest day of their life. Chances are they look the best. And even with my seniors see something in themselves that they've never seen before.
Oh yeah.
It's this year I got it. It's funny. I'm actually thinking about it and processing. I got this handwritten note from a client with one of those like little jars that looks like a lens mug, you know, and it looks like a lens.
Yeah.
Out of it. And there was a handwritten note that said, you know, ever since, you know, X started shooting with you, her depression has started to go away. She's seen something in herself that she hasn't seen before. You know, we dealt with suicide in the past, and, you know, she's on a totally different trajectory now that you showed her, you know, something that she's never seen before. And just the power, I think, as photographers, we don't realize that. You know, we don't realize that we can give that gift to somebody and have them see something that they don't see in themselves. And it was just an amazing experience for me.
That's got to be, you know, and that's what I see in shooting seniors too, because we do some as well. Just to have those moments where they can say, wow, I didn't realize I could look this way. And it does, it opens everyone's eyes to having self-confidence. And also that's just something about photography, and why I love portrait photography is we know that when we pass our photographs subconsciously in the house, it's a reminder of who's important, what's important. It's also a reminder of that you're important. And so I really love that side of it, and part of why I do like shooting people so much, I think.
Absolutely. So what are some resources that you would recommend to other photographers, whether that's on lighting, whether that's on photography, you know, or, you know, drawing out that inspiration? What is something that you would recommend?
You know, it's kind of cliche, I think, but I grew up going to like Wedding and Portrait Photographers International, WPPI, things of that nature. I'm still a big fan of it. And I'm a big fan of it because you have this opportunity to spend a week of learning it through different classes, learning from different photographers. Did you miss?
Yeah, I was going to say we broke up, so start again.
So if I had to say that, I'd probably say the big conferences, you know, WPPI, PPA. It's cliche to say, but also keep in mind that, you know, typically you're sitting down for a week and learning from people who do know what they're doing. And so to dive in and spend a full week of nonstop learning in your classes, it's not just going to teach you photography, it's going to teach you how to succeed as a photographer. And I think that gets missed online a lot. no matter how much you learn about lighting and cameras and apertures and shutter speeds, you also need to learn how to apply business and make that work for you, and find ways to serve your clients better because of it. And that's what those types of conferences provide, you know.
Absolutely. And what is your favorite conference? Do you have one?
I'm a big fan of WPPI and Photo Plus.
Those are my go-tos, and I enjoy. We have a really strong state organization, and love that one as well.
Yeah.
So I will post the information to your YouTube channel as well as your website. But do you have any parting thoughts for photographers, whether they are just starting out or in a rut, or just maybe they've been a natural light photographer, so now they're looking to more controlled light? Do you have anything that you'd like to pass on?
Just that the dream is still alive. You know, you can still live your dream of being a photographer if that's your goal. And you can still live the dream of being an artist. And I think it's never been more accessible than now. The power is really in the hands of the individual creator, if you choose to see it that way. And then also, I'll say that if you don't see yourself doing that, you can still make an incredible living and life in the industry that you love if you decide that you don't want to take the professional photographer route. As you know, you can work in this photographic industry and keep photography as your passion. So, you know, there's two ways to look at things. It's just all about taking the power of what you have and you know, making the most of it. So
absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time so much. We had a little bit of hiccups there. That's to figure out at a later date. But I will go through and I will do my best to edit this and get some of those out. But I do really thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, for joining us. And I look forward to the next time we get to talk.
Yeah, you got to come hang out up here in person. We'll go skateboard and have some fun.
Sounds good, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Catch you later.